One. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech Talks. I'm Victor Matthews here with Julie, and we are back after a few weeks of no Tech Talks. We did a couple Tech Talks live on Twitch, and then we were gone for a little while there. But we're back, and we're going to try to get back on a weekly schedule.
Now that we've got our routine for working from home.
Yes. So you are working from home now. I guess
Yeah,
that's the major change that.
that is biggest.
And you've been working with things like Zoom, Google Meets,
Yep.
all those different programs. What has been working out so far with what you've been tech wise?
Okay, the biggest, most obvious thing to state is that of all of the educators I work with across disciplines, but all from my site, or well, my sites, my district, is that Zoom is consistently loved much better than Google Meets. And our district, we had a moratorium for about 2 weeks where no one was allowed to use Zoom because of Zoom bombing. And our district was working with Zoom and having them make it so that we could authenticate students, children, users under 18. And now we are able to use Zoom again. Zoom has updated. Google Meets has also not only updated, but our district had moved or shifted rather more to using Google Meets because of the security issues with Zoom. But Google Meets is grainier image-wise. It seems like it just consistently, the video that has more lag. And then it doesn't have as many nice features. I know they've been trying to add some. For example, one of them that just came up this weekend was recording. You can record really easily with Zoom. That's actually how I end up recording my student videos is I just go into a Zoom meeting by myself and I click record and I record the video. And then as soon as I leave the meeting, it converts it, downloads it, whatever, MP4, I think it is. And then I can download it and do whatever I need to with it. Other platforms, it seems a little trickier, like Google Hangouts. And with Google Meet, I think you can record it as long as you have permission from everyone. But like I mentioned, the experience of me and my coworkers is that Google Meets is consistently grainier and has more lag. So it's just not as good of a quality video if it's what the meetings look like at any rate. I haven't actually made videos with Google Meets because it's so easy with Zoom.
And so you are making videos, and as part of your
My job.
job, you're making videos so that you can do kind of like a
An
telelearning.
asynchronous, yeah. So my job as a therapist is, well, it's really hands-on. So that makes it a little tricky to do occupational therapy by the distance model because a lot of people, they kind of reduce what we do to fine motor. But even if you're just reducing it to that one thing we work on, fine motor is kind of hard to work on when I'm here and they're there, right? I can't give them toys or pieces. And so it's been a lot of making videos with like whatever everyone will have, like, so using coins and toilet paper and recycled boxes and things or pillows to do all kinds of fine motor, visual, well, and so that's another thing is visual perception. I've had some problems with the videos too. So Zoom and my Mac have not been playing nicely. I've had some issues, for example, where I was supposed to be running a preschool motor group and my camera stopped working. The green light was still on as if my camera was working, but there was no video. And thank goodness I was co-teaching this or co-leading this group with a speech therapist. So the speech therapist was able to kind of like show the movements while I just talked. But yeah, it seems like from my experience, Zoom and Mac aren't playing the greatest together. And from an email I got that went district-wide where I'm working, the Chromebooks are not playing nice with, or wait, no, it's Google. I'm having trouble with Google Meets in my Mac, and the teachers that are using Chromebooks are having a lot of trouble using their Chromebooks with Zoom. So there's that. But even in one-to-one, I've had issues with the video using my knack through Google Meet. So I've been using Google Meets with the students that I am seeing live because of security, for one. And then also, we had that moratorium where we couldn't use Zoom. It wasn't an option. We had to use Google Meets. And rather than like some of the parents that have a little more trouble with tech, rather than orienting them to one thing and then back to a different, for those parents, I'm sticking with Google Meets. But even in those situations where it's like there's no reason for the camera to stop working, it has, and then it's just refused to start working, which is really problematic. So like I said, when I'm working on visual perception or ocular motor, for example, it's hard to have a student like look at something I'm trying to show them and have them use their eyes to interpret it if they literally can't see it when there's no camera. So that's been pretty problematic for the live. Luckily, we have been able to use asynchronous. So instead of meeting up live for synchronous therapy, I've been primarily doing asynchronous, so recording videos or collecting resources and sending those to the families so that the parents can help facilitate the students. And then my job has shifted more to like coaching, consulting with parents, and I miss my kids. And this is kind of getting away from technology, so I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, so you've been using Zoom and Google Meets. You've been doing live sessions, which is pretty hard for a physical job, right? Like you do a lot of physical work.
And it's interesting too, because the speech therapist, right? Like a lot of people group OT with either speech or PT because we are the related service providers, or vision therapy, which is also a different thing. But it's like speech, they're actually doing quite well through the distance model. And for some kids, it sounds like it's actually working better, because they're focusing mostly on their voice, talking, so their speech, and some of the kids that aren't as interested in person and are just kind of like interested in everything else in the environment, now it's like their speech therapist is on the screen, so the kid's like, ooh, oh, it's I know this teacher, this is my teacher, and it seems like a very personal, I think, very fun video like for them. So that it's great that that's working really well for some kids, for at least for speech, it sounds like. But like physical therapy, and I do one, like I mentioned, I do one gross motor group, which is really hard to do from home because of the space. PT is a whole other,
and then so you've had to do that when it comes to sessions using Zoom and things, and then you've also had to, for kind of a larger group, you'd have to make videos and then send them as kind of homework-ish for the parents to work with their kids on.
Yes, more or less. So it's really tricky, and I really commend all the parents and families out there that are trying to do so much, because it's hard. And for the kids to be in their home and now not only having to do adult directed activities, but it's their parents who they're not used to presenting academic materials. And the parents most parents haven't been through training for presenting academics. So it's a really big job what they're doing. But yeah, parents, for a lot of it, they're doing the actual facilitating because they're there.
Yeah.
I literally can't provide physical cues. Even in the live, the synchronous consults with parents and sessions that way, it's kind of hard because I can't control the environment, which is part of my job. I can't like change the tool. So, right, like if they're trying to do something and they're just using what they have at home, but what they have at home isn't quite the right fit, I'm not there to as readily adapt the item. The parents might not understand what I'm saying or have and then there's the time too. And it's yeah, right. It's mostly
tech-wise, that's what you had to do.
Yeah, but it's hard because the parents like adjusting the camera too to see what they're doing. So even if we're live, I can't see how the child is fully positioned and like what they're doing. Even with the parents that are like a little better with computer, it's still hard and it's still not 3D, and I still can't. Technology, there are definite limitations to providing teletherapy, but I can see, depending on the situation and other factors, it's definitely great for remote areas where they otherwise like wouldn't have access to an OT. And I think that a combination of the asynchronous plus coaching consulting could be really great. But you would need to have that coaching consult part to be really strong, where parents can ask questions and they can express what they're seeing or challenges that they're observing. Then the OT can say, oh, let's try scaffolding or facilitating this way. Let's adjust just a little bit here. For the platforms, the tech platforms, I was going to say, should we also touch, and I don't have a lot to say on this, but I was going to say Google Classroom is interesting. I don't love it. And so maybe I really shouldn't say too much. I guess I'll say, from my perspective of using it, it seems not at all made for what I do.
Yes.
It's not confidential. I can't post to my students only, from what I've seen. Like, and I've heard of other therapists who are trying to post to students, just that one student, because what we do is confidential. But somehow other students, and we're not sure if it's like if a teacher, because the teacher is also a co-teacher in their own classroom. So did the teacher like share it thinking it was like, you know, cool or for everyone or something? And then is that how other students act? So at this point, I'm mostly not using Google Classroom because it just doesn't seem appropriate for all students. It's not an appropriate virtual classroom for all students. Especially if that student has an IEP, there's really nothing built in for us related service providers to be able to support that student's education, which if they are going to keep their Google Classroom, they really should be talking to special ed, in my opinion, and having those kinds of things put in, because
yeah, right now it seems like it is built for gen ed.
Well, yeah, very much so.
And but it's good to have that feedback to see if they're, because I'm sure a lot of the people that are building that don't necessarily understand.
Like you have to,
especially in a place like California versus a place like Michigan, where it's a whole separate thing. Like the gen ed is separated out from.
Oh, in Michigan, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, because I work in a district that's full inclusion.
Yeah.
And so full inclusion is, it's literally all of our IEP students are in gen ed classrooms and have gen ed teachers. And so under this distance model, that is also kind of tricky, I would say, for our specialized academic instructors, because
it's full inclusion.
They're split between like a dozen classrooms for, you know, the most severe students. The teacher right now under this distance model, they're really spread thin too. That's kind of tricky, but there are benefits to the full inclusion model. We won't get into all that for this time.
Yeah, it's just that their full inclusion in the Google Classroom with the full inclusion does not work as well.
Yeah, and so I guess you're right that if it was a different district that had special day classes, the special day classes might have their own separate platform, or at least Google Classroom. I was going to mention the platform Seesaw. At this point, we aren't using it, but that is a platform that is also similar to Google Classroom, but that is potentially something that we might be looking at if the distance learning were to continue, or if we were to come back to distance learning, say, come winter, if a second strain or something down the road. At this point, Seesaw looks to be a better choice for like what our department does. And I think for some of the younger grades and what we would be looking at. I think that is all of my commentary on this topic.
Okay.
Sorry for the tangents.
And so that's what life has been like working distance learning.
Well, can we talk about one other part, like kind of tangential to that too?
Okay.
The glasses, blue glasses, I think help. I'm not wearing them right now, but I do have a couple pairs of those that usually when I'm working during the week, I wear those, and I feel like they help some, but
blue light blocking glasses.
Yeah, the blue light blocking glasses.
They're usually yellow glasses.
For looking at the screens all day, and you can also change within your computer's settings, at least
nowadays.
On some of them, most computers, I think you can change it on your phone. Pull down from the top and change it. And sometimes I think it's called night light. Is that what they call it?
Some, yeah, some. Well, no, nightlight. Yeah,
It,
nightlight would be the
on
what
the
you're talking
Pixel.
about. Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Phones do it. Even monitors are starting to do it. TVs are starting to do it. But on operating systems, I think Microsoft has it built in now. Apple has it built in
And I
now.
can't remember all of the reasons why, but the main one that I remember is the one the optometrist, I think it was, that I was the woman that I got my glasses from. She was telling me about some of the studies, what they're finding with the blue light, um, prolonged looking at blue lights, and macular degeneration was one of the things. But it does have negative effects on your eyes over time, as well as the biggest thing for me, like in the moment, and what really gets me is like I feel tired and just more exhausted. Along those same lines, we want to make sure that besides just like a glasses, looking away from our screen is really important too, because the eye muscles, if they're just staying that same length staring at the same distance away from you, you can really easily get eye strain. So you need to like diverge your eyes, look at something far away, at least 20 feet away. And the recommendation, I think, is usually like for 20 seconds every 20 minutes, look away for at least 20 feet away. You could like look out the window or something, and that, I think that also helps, because sometimes when I get working on my computer, I'll sit there and I'll be working for a really long time, and then I'll realize like I'm getting a headache, and then I start to think about it, and it's like, oh, my eyes actually really hurt. I didn't even really realize I need to go look at some other stuff for a few minutes.
And generally, the idea of taking a 20-minute, like after 20 minutes, taking about a 5-minute break.
That's a lot of breaks. I don't know about. I mean,
That's
if you can
yeah,
do that, would be yeah, sure.
but I think that's the general rule of thumb, I guess.
I would say more like, obviously that's great if you can do that. That's not
Yeah.
realistic, I think, for a lot of people. So I'd say make sure you're pumping your ankles too. Like, yeah, if you can get up and walk, great. But you also don't want like blood pooling in your ankles. So if you can't get up and walk, pump your ankles. Like, just, take your feet and push them so your toes are pointed straight, and then bend your ankles so your toes are pointed back towards your body. Just do that a few times every 20 minutes if you can't get up and walk. Move your arms, stretch at your desk. Um, and also try to make sure that if you're using your keyboard or mouse, that you're not holding your wrists in flexion, and you're not holding them in an awkward pit, like off to the side. So if you're keyboarding and your wrists are both turned in like this, of course you're going to end up with wrist pain. So we want as much as possible for our shoulders to be relaxed, our elbows to be at our sides, right about 90 degrees. And then we want our wrists to be in neutral as much as possible.
Yeah. So ergonomics was something that we've changed up even here
Yeah.
after set in the time frame. We've changed
Rearranged
my
a few
desk up.
times.
We changed your desk up. We got this place so that when we're going to be in front of the computers, we have pretty good ergonomic positioning.
Well, I would say we have yours set up pretty good for ergonomics. Mine's not set up great, but that is in part because working from home. I am right now I'm split between two laptops, because the one is having the camera issues with the platforms I need to contact some of my families, and then the other one, there are some buttons that don't always press the greatest, and I don't want to have to keep downloading my work stuff and my confidential files on my personal computer. I'd rather keep all that on my work computer. So I'm split between two laptops for work right now, and working around 8 or so hours a day. The problem with a laptop is the screen. For ergonomics, the screen should be right about the top of the screen should be level with your eyes. But the keyboard should be right about your elbow height when your shoulders are relaxed and your elbows are resting at your sides, 90 degrees of elbow flexion. And laptops they're not made for that. They're nowhere near tall enough. And so I can't have my work set up for work ergonomic for both my neck and my body. It just doesn't work if you're in. I guess the takeaway from this point is, if you have to do a lot of computer-based stuff, don't use a laptop. At the very least, have a separate mouse. And ideally, you might also want to get a keyboard. That is something that we've been talking about, is getting me another keyboard so I won't have to keep using my laptop keyboard.
There's also desk setups that if you are using a laptop, they have a laptop holder that'll bring up the laptop, and then if you have a separate keyboard and mouse,
Yeah.
that will attach it. So it essentially turns it into kind of a semi-desktop setup.
Right. And well, like if you have your own keyboard and mouse, you can just, even on your desk, just stack up reams of paper until it's the right height. And then
Yeah.
you've got your screen at the right height. But the biggest thing is you can't have the screen at the right ergonomic height and have the keyboard and mouse positioned ergonomically if you're using a keyboard or if you're using a laptop. And
Yeah. And
that's
keyboard and mouse combination are usually pretty cheap.
You know, honestly, it's going to be interesting how things go in the coming months, and like all of the cultural changes that will come as a result of this. But I know of a lot of teachers that are having a lot of physical pain right now because of we're not used, like when we're in a school, we do have to do computer-based tasks, but it's like usually you have like, oh, I have like 5 minutes, I'm gonna real quick, or you might have up to half an hour to work on paperwork continuously. Otherwise, the biggest chunk is like a couple hours at home in the evening. But that's it. It's just like a couple hours, and you can like take breaks a little more easily than when you're trying to like grind through and trying to get in through like an entire regular work day and trying to all of that, but distant. And it's the current working conditions are a disaster, honestly. And this working through tech for a lot of teachers and school staff is really, really hard and not ideal. And I can't see the education for most people would move this way. Certainly not for special education.
No, I mean, I don't think on a tech level that kind of thing is ready for that kind of level of stuff. And so yeah, it's just a temporary what people are going through right now
It just
kind of system.
it's interesting the things people say, because I have heard, I mean, people will make headlines to get clicks, but there are a lot of people that say about, well, colleges right now are taking a huge financial hit, and college students are more adept to moving online, so oh, maybe a lot of colleges will shift to being online now. And I don't know that that's like the worst thing. I think that there are definitely some degrees that is very reasonable, but as an as an OT, I would say that at the very least it should be a hybrid model, and I think that there is definite need for that in-person hands-on experience even at the college level.
Yeah, I think what will happen is a lot of when on the college level, a lot of colleges will understand that they actually save a lot of money doing a lot of these things, like just your general math classes and a lot of your gen ed classes in the college level.
Sorry.
They probably will save a lot of money just by offering those online. And then they don't have to feed these kids. They don't have to make sure that they're in the dorms and things like that. They probably save a lot per student if they offer a lot of these online. And then, like, for their more rigorous classes, having the college still be there. And there's still, like, University of Phoenix, right? A totally online college.
We have differences in opinion, I think, on this to some degree. I don't think that teaching a math class online would save money. I see what you're saying, like if the whole student doesn't enroll. But the thing is, they make money off of the food. They want students to come and stay in the dorms and to get the meal plans, because that is how the colleges make a lot of money. So I don't think it's that they would shift to online for saving money in those areas. I think they would shift to online to save money as far as they don't have to pay a professor as much if the professor can just teach an online class, and the professor doesn't have to commute to the college and have a workspace for the classroom and have an office space.
I would
pay the lighting, all of those costs.
I don't know how much they make off of the foods, because there's a huge cost to it, and food generally is not like a cost effective.
Let's not get into that right now. This is also not the point of this tech talk. So there is potential. We agree that for some things to be taught online, but by no means can everything shift to that manner. It works better for some people than others, and
Yeah.
Yeah. What other topics or what else are we getting to?
The next big topic actually is the Google is seeming to phase out uh, Google Music, right? That's what it is. Google Play Music,
Oh, really?
and phase in YouTube Music. And the next kind of phase of that process is they are now setting up transferring your playlists from YouTube Play Music, or not YouTube Play YouTube from Google Play Music to YouTube Music. And some people like this transition because they've been using it. There has been an article from the 9 to 5 Google that says, oh wait, was it 9 to 5 Google? Hold on. Oh, Android Authority. Android Authority has an article saying like it's not a good idea to fully to phase out Google Play Music, but that's seems to be what's going on.
Well, and I could be completely. I've never actually used YouTube Music or you Music. What is
YouTube
it?
Music.
It is called YouTube Music. I've never actually used that. I'm assuming they would make it as high quality as the other music, right? It's not just like they're ripping it from the YouTube video, right?
No, they it would be. I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure that their library of music from Google Play Music is gonna be in YouTube Music, but I think it has more integration with YouTube as well. Probably a lot of the licensing and things like that, they are able to use their machine learning better. I'm not exactly sure.
I think there is benefit to consolidating things like that, and I think in the long run I may end up liking it better, I would guess or predict. But I certainly struggle with the technology changes in the interim for making that switch, and I've been enjoying Google Music, especially. So now are the podcasts, I'm assuming, also through YouTube Music, since
I
the
actually don't
podcasts
know.
had been through YouTube Play Music?
Podcasts now have YouTube. Google has its own Google Podcasts.
So wait. Why are they teasing certain things out and combining other things? Like, okay, I can't.
I don't know. Google, like Google does like to have a lot of separate things sometimes, and we've talked about having having things consolidated ends up making a master of none kind of situation. But there's also a balance of having too many things, too many separate apps makes it kind of hard to pay attention to all of them.
Yeah, that is. I kind of had gotten to the point where I was used to the podcast being with Play Music, and I was like, okay, good, I'm used to this. Great, let's keep it like this now. And now that they're changing it, I don't like that. That really bothers me. That
It just started pouring. It was sunny like 10 minutes ago.
maybe we could play in a few minutes. Okay.
In the rain?
It's not that cold. Warm. Anyways, okay, back to this. Let's do this before. Okay. What were we?
YouTube Music.
Yeah, so I guess I'll be interested to see how that goes. And to me, honestly, just the idea of having to switch platforms is so inconvenient. It makes me like, why would I stick with Google if it wasn't for you being like, well, this is our platform, we're paying for it. As someone who hates technology, and when they want to make me switch, I would just say, fuck it, I'm done with it, I'm switching back to Pandora or something. Like, honestly,
Spotify right now is like the big second, I think.
Spotify I've also used. Yeah, Spotify was actually what I was using before. But I keep getting Pandora ads lately. But anyway, so they've been on my mind.
Android TV devices can now be added to Google Home speaker groups, which is just nice continuity there. If you have Android TV, using it as like a Chromecast with the speakers. The other part of it, so that was like the Google stuff that was going on. There was also, we'll probably save this for next time, but Microsoft showed off its new Surface lineup with the Surface Go, the
This is the one you told me about, that laptop, right?
Yeah,
Tell
the
about that.
Surface laptop, or the Surface Laptop 3, I think it was, which is different. Man, there are two laptops. There is, um, and I can't remember what the names are. But one of them they announced last fall, which was the laptop, and then there was the Surface Book, I think is what it's called, which
Take it
is
apart.
yeah the tablet Surface, but it has its own keyboard hinge that it locks into that gives it an extra graphics card if you have that option, and extra battery, and it's like a full-on laptop. So it turns the Surface into a full laptop, versus the Surface Pro, where you have like that kind of flat keyboard that is more of a cover than it is like a keyboard laptop.
Oh yeah, I I like the sounds of that. That it can come apart and go together like a
Mm-hmm.
laptop. For example, if I was using that for work, then I could take my lap or my screen away from my keyboard and
But the keyboard would still be set. Like the keyboard wouldn't work when you do that.
oh, their keyboard. Oh, see, that will have to be future generations. They should work on that.
I mean, like if you what you would do in your situation is you would take it off, flip it around, because the way it works is if you flip the Surface around and you close it down, you can close the keyboard behind it, and then you have it as a tablet mode.
Right, and then
But
I
you also
still
have
have
the
a
graphics.
keyboard.
Yeah, and you'd have
Get a
your
separate
keyboard.
keyboard and mouse.
And they have extension items, but that I think is actually a podcast. Probably next week's podcast. It's going in detail on the Surface lineup that they announced.
That's all you.
Then also we got some VR equipment,
Oh yeah, the future of gaming.
and we got the Valve Index controllers. And the way these work, this really changed up how you interact in VR, because VR, we had what you were using before was a general controller like this, and it had buttons on the right here, and it had some hand buttons on the side and a trigger, and then this would be motion tracked too for what you're doing in game.
Well, you can see our base like up on the wall.
Yeah, you can
right
see the
there.
base. It actually can. This camera is picking up the LED lights
Little
in
red
it.
lights inside. Yeah,
Um,
that's one of our bases. We have the other one is like right in front
Yeah.
of us over there.
and in real life, you can't really see
Right.
those. Those are hidden behind this shield.
But this new controller, it seems very cool.
Yeah. So the new controller that Valve created is what it does is these buttons here, this button and then this grip here, tracks, and also on top there is a button for your thumb, tracks if you're touching it and how hard you're touching it. And what it does is it uses that to mimic what your hand is doing in game, so that you can use your physical gestures to pick things up and move things in game, which really changes how you interact in VR and makes it even more immersive than it was already. Very cool design.
I was gonna say I do really like their design. You didn't actually put on. So like when you put your hand in like this, it goes all the way around, and then there's like the thing here that you just pull, and it tightens it. So then you literally can have your hands out.
Although
which is
you have
really
it
cool. I do.
backwards.
I'm bad with these kinds of things like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now it's on the correct hand. Okay, but and then the game you were playing, is that the only game that this works really?
No.
Like that you really want that fine motor, or
Half-Life Alyx came out, and that is the one I think that utilizes this the best. But there are other games that utilize it, because the Oculus had handsets that had semi hand gesture stuff. It basically had a finger pinch that it would be able to understand as a grasp.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the fingers are all the same. But this one has each individual finger.
Well, and we should mention it is kind of like a gross every other finger, so it's either like it knows that those fingers are down or up, so like it
Yeah.
can kind of tell that way. But of course, and it can tell like if you're using your prehension, your thumb and your digit two finger, this finger,
Index.
index finger, your index finger, it can tell like which fingers you're using, and like I was curious if it could like tell the difference between like a three-jaw chuck or a neat pincer versus like a lateral grasp. And it can't, but depending on what you're picking up in game, like it doesn't really matter because if you're picking up a piece of paper, of course it's just going to do a lateral grasp. And so it doesn't really matter that it's not truly noticing all of your fine motor, because it's really just where are your five fingers, which five fingers are up versus down.
Yeah, it's
but it makes a big difference.
It does. It makes a very, very big difference in interactivity. And again, like the pressure, it does understand the pressure. So if you're holding a Coke can versus crushing a Coke can.
Oh, I haven't tried that yet.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there's it's pretty good. It's definitely if you have a VR headset and you're looking to see like a HTC Vive, and you're looking to see what next add-on you should get to make it more, that would be the next biggest jump in your experience.
I agree, because so for his birthday we've been like talking about like, well, what do you want, what makes sense, and we were looking at, well, he was looking at his different options and like the headset versus the gloves, and we were using the same. Did you already explain that? The same headset and
same
trackers.
Headset.
We only upgraded.
So the Vive ecosystem and the Valve ecosystem work together. And the Vive, if you have the original HTC Vive, yes, the pixels on the number, on paper, the pixel count seems less, and it is less. But you have to also remember, it is one of the few OLED screens that in headsets right now, which is actually quite big when it comes to image quality versus an LCD screen that the Oculus has. One of the Oculus. I think we were looking at the Oculus Rift S, which I believe was an LCD screen that had higher pixel count, but it was LCD, which made like true colors a lot lesser.
I don't really know the details of the screen specs. Obviously, that's just. But I was gonna say one more thing that is kind of jumping back to what we'd already mentioned. I do wear the yellow tinted glasses inside of the thing. And I'm interested in decades from now what we find out as far as like how the VR system affects the eyes themselves. Yeah, because I don't think that it can be that healthy, right? Like it's not, we don't, no one's suspecting or theorizing that it's improving your eyesight or your ocular mechanism, but
it could be
detrimental. And so that is something I guess maybe to keep in mind too, that and also like I wouldn't use it for an extended period. I think the longest I maybe used it has ever been like half an hour of Beat Saber.
Yeah, and I think right now the technology kind of already does that for you, because a lot of people get motion sickness already just by being in the Vive.
But even still, I mean,
and eventually as time goes on and they're able to eliminate the motion sickness, I'm sure that more studies will come out in the eyesights, because it is a giant magnifying glass almost that you put yourself that like put right on your eyes, and then an LCD or OLED screen like right there.
Well, and when you like we were talking about like the ocular motor, when you think about it, like your eyes are focusing on these things that are actually like this close to your, like that are really close to your face. That can't, like, even if like you think you're looking at something that's further away in the screen, I'm not sure, I don't know. And then you've got the blue light on top of that, so like you're holding your eyes in a position that I would think is I don't know. Anyways,
In theory,
it'll be interesting.
yeah, in theory, right now the lenses are supposed to you're supposed to adjust them so that you get good sight.
So that
And
you're relaxing your eyes and
yeah,
you're not like focusing on this
yeah,
near thing that it seems far right. I don't know.
and it's yeah, but what I'm mostly what I'm saying is even if you have an old system like the original Oculus and the original Vive, the headsets, upgrading the headset is probably going to be less of an upgrade than it would be to get the um, controller.
Yeah,
Is
that's what it seems like.
the best thing. There at some point it would be nice to upgrade the headset just for the sharpness because the detail you get a lot of detail when you're looking. There was for the Half-Life Alyx you get these gloves that have all sorts of microchips on them, and with the higher quality headsets you could actually like read those microchips pretty well because of the sharpness of the thing. But
Impressive.
with the general gameplay, looking far away, looking up close, things like that, like the difference is not as big as having something that you can just grasp and then interact with in a more realistic manner.
Because I definitely felt that was more immersive. Like VR is very immersive, the audio and the visual. Just the main thing is the visual, of course. But always having your hands clenched versus actually moving your hands. I mean it's a huge immersion difference.
Yeah.
Were you going to talk about Hunter?
Hunter? What do you mean Hunter?
Well, I thought that along the same lines as the VR, kind of where video games and that
Hunter.
seems to be going.
Yeah, the hunting game. Okay, yeah. So we just watched actually the skill up review of that Hunt game.
Oh, it's just Hunt?
Yeah, I think it was called Hunt. It's Hunt Showdown, I think it's what it's called.
Oh, Battle Royale, though.
Yeah, it was a kind of a Battle Royale hybrid where you are put into a map, but instead of your objective killing everybody else on the map, it was your objective is to kill a monster that's on the map, and not die. Yeah, and not die in the process.
And there are other team players that are also going for it. It's multiple teams, right? Because
multiple teams working and trying to find multiple. I don't know if it's multiple different objectives for each team, or if it's one objective.
Yeah, it sounded like to me. It sounded like there's one bounty, and then there are multiple teams of like mercenaries or whatever, all trying to get that bounty. So the teams are working against each other, but also in a sort of race to get it. It's not a very fast race because it's, and this is the thing, is the audio component of that game.
So he talked a lot about the audio, and Julie, being more of a audio person than a visual person, was very interested in that aspect of games and the technology that's being used nowadays. Versus back in the day when everything sounded like it was just coming straight in front of you. We've upgraded technology to be able to have surround sound, but now they've used this new technology that is this kind of ear microphone that it's supposed to simulate, like if you talk from the left of the ear versus the right of the ear.
They're doing binaural, so they've done a more complex audio recording for this game is what it seems like. Every single action you do has a specific sound, and they're of different volumes. And then you have the binaural factor. So like what Victor was talking about, the audio spatial is like where a sound comes from in the game is very, very well done, and it actually seems like for this game to be able to find your enemies, it's as much or more of an audio hunt than visual. Because yes, you need to look around, but it was a very quiet game.
There's a lot of visual blockage, right? Like this takes place in like kind of like this jungle-ish biome.
I'm assuming they're different maps, but at any rate, it was like relatively small maps with lots of
so you're working a lot based off of your visual or your auditory processing, and it's made by Crytek, who is pretty known for pushing the boundaries of technology. They made the Crysis games, which was known for pushing graphics to an edge where it just melted computers. Yeah, like like the visual fidelity of even Crisis One. If you play it today, you would
Hmm.
almost think it was made like in the past couple of years, but
Hmm.
it was made, I don't know, like a decade ago.
I will say, I mean, I didn't look a ton at that Hunter game visually, but it did
Hmm.
look nice.
Yeah, and it looked nice, and
Bloodborne, that's the visual, kind of what it made me think of.
uh, different theme.
That kind of rustic, dark.
Yeah, it was very dark game.
Anyways.
And but now it seems like they're doing that same thing with the audio. They're taking audio to the next level,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, the game is kind of a bust. It doesn't. Not a lot of people are playing it.
Well, but from okay, if you want to listen to the review, go listen to Still
Yeah,
Up because his reviews are pretty
his review is
interesting.
good. Yeah,
Yeah, and his review is well done, it seemed. But I it sounds like it's just very niche is the
it is a
impression I got.
very
Like it
niche.
sounds well made,
Yeah,
but it was like something like only half of the players that have the game have actually even killed another player in the game. It's
yeah.
very hard.
It's a very niche game, and when I mean bust, like I mean financially.
Yeah, sure.
That game probably took a lot to make, and I don't know if they recovered
You're
the
probably
money
right.
from that.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah,
It's not raining already. Sorry.
that was a very cool seeing those ear microphone things that they're using to kind of record sound and get a grasp as to where it is, and that would be probably because we just saw the Unreal 5 engine demo, and the graphics fidelity, the it looks really good. Um, but as Jim Sterling mentioned, a lot of the graphics fidelity on character models is starting to have diminishing returns, right? Like the characters now are not looking that much more impressive than they did last gen from the previous gen, and so it's starting to sound like diminishing returns are coming when it comes to the graphics quality and how good the graphics are coming, versus audio would be the next step, is to get audio to be in sync with real world audio.
Like the spatial
Yeah.
and the timing and the like actually having your sounds make a sound.
So I think you
Sorry, my eye.
a lot of games, ray tracing right now is going to be a big one.
Oh yeah.
Making the lighting better, and I bet you a lot of games are going to focus a lot on the audio.
That would be really nice. I think that would be really nice. I think there's not an okay.
Oh yeah.
I won't get into it. But I was just gonna say, as a personal opinion, I think that there is a lot of room for research into more audio. I know there is some research, and some of the different programs, the therapeutic listenings and like the gating and whatnot, the ways that they manipulate auditory information and sounds is really interesting, and I'm kind of excited to see how that goes with video games, because I think that video games have a big arena to do a lot of progress making in a way that they can fund because it's motivating for people to pay for it or to fund, and then it probably, I would think and assume that that can then lead out into other things, right? Like we have video games, but now video games have become so popular that it's not only for fun. Like, right, there's educational and visual video games that help with your visual perception, and like we have audio games in real life to work on auditory processing, auditory filtering, and whatnot that way. So I think it will be nice that after the audio and video games gets improved down the road, there is more likely to be more apps and games that work on auditory skills.
There was a video game that you play as a blind person, and there was no visual component to it.
What was that?
I can't remember. It was a few years back. But I do remember that game coming out, and it was a very interesting experience, I guess, from what I heard. But yeah, that was something that happened. I think that's it for today, though. Next week, well, actually, I have one. Maybe next week might be the one with Eric, because Eric, my cousin Eric's going to be on. He is in IT, that he has some things he wanted to talk about. And then the week after that, we will go over the Surface stuff. So
That's the tentative plan.
That's a tentative plan. For us, it'll be our next week recording, but because I'm probably going to record it today with Eric. But for
at any rate, so there
YouTube.
are some guests, at least one guest coming up in the near future. Who knows? Maybe more. Possibly.
I mean, knows different things, or has something that he wants to say. I don't know exactly what it was. He just said that.
Oh no, I thought that Eric wasn't the only one. I thought someone else.
Oh,
Jeremy.
Anyway. Jeremy might. I don't know if he has anything he wants to show off or talk about. But that if Jeremy shows
even
it
just
comes
you
on.
guys chatting, I'm sure other people find that.
Well, it's Tech Talks. It's got to be about tech.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean
technology.
tech. That's what I mean because you guys know more, and then you guys talk, and
yeah, it all depends as to what he has to say.
Fair enough.
So we will see you next week.
Take care.
Bye.